Reed Carter was walking along the floating river that moved like a shining ribbon through the alien world of Valaris. His boots pressed softly into the glowing grass, and the air hummed with strange insect songs. He liked this area because it was quiet. Most soldiers avoided it, saying the river did strange things to their senses. But Reed enjoyed the peace. Then he heard something that broke the silence, wild splashing and a sharp, frightened cry. Reed stopped. It didn't sound like normal river movement. It sounded alive, desperate. He ran toward the sound and saw something shocking. A young alien lion, its fur glowing gold and its mane flowing like feathers, thrashed helplessly in the water. The river kept pulling it toward the deeper end, where the current became faster and darker. Reed's instincts kicked in. He climbed over the rocks and got ready to jump, but then he noticed someone else nearby. A girl stood a few steps from the water, dressed in silver and white armor, her skin shimmering in soft shades of blue. She looked like royalty, too clean, too elegant to be out here alone. Her hands trembled, but she didn't move toward the river. Reed called out, "Are you okay? Is that your animal?" The girl looked at him, startled. "He is my pet. My companion. But I cannot reach him. The river pulls too strong. I tried. I failed." Reed didn't waste another second. "Hold tight. I'll get him." Without thinking about the depth or danger, he dove into the water. The cold hit him first, then the force of the current. The young lion struggled, sending waves against Reed's face. Reed kicked hard and reached out, grabbing the creature's mane. Its glowing feathers brushed his skin like sparks. "Easy boy," Reed said softly. "I've got you." The lion fought for a moment, scared and confused, but Reed used his calm voice, letting the creature feel his steady grip. Slowly the lion stopped thrashing. Reed guided it toward the shore, pushing against the strong pull of the river. His muscles burned, but he didn't let go. Finally, Reed reached the rocks again and pulled himself and the lion onto the dry ground. He lay there breathing heavily while the young creature coughed out water, shaking from fear. The girl rushed over, dropping to her knees. "Soul. Soul, you're alive." So the lion had a name, Soul. Reed sat up, brushing the water from his face. "He's okay. Just scared." But something unexpected happened. Soul didn't run to the girl. Instead, he moved closer to Reed and rested his glowing head against the soldier's arm. The girl watched in surprise. "He never does that," she whispered. "He is afraid of everyone except me." Reed gave a small smile. Maybe he just needed someone to jump in with him. The girl lowered her eyes. She seemed embarrassed, maybe even ashamed. "I should have saved him. I should have gone in. I froze. Everyone thinks I am brave, but..." She stopped speaking, her voice trembling. Reed studied her more carefully now. She wasn't just any girl. She was Princess Aurelia, daughter of the Valari king. He remembered her from briefings. Proud, confident, important. But right now she looked like someone young and unsure. "It's okay," Reed said gently. "Rivers scare people. Animals panic. You tried to help. That matters." Aurelia looked at Soul again, watching how he stayed pressed against Reed like he had found safety. She frowned slightly, not in anger but in confusion. "He trusts you. That is rare. Valari lions accept very few." Reed scratched Soul behind the feather-like mane, and the lion made a soft, humming sound. "He's just a scared kid," Reed said. "Anyone would be shaking after that." Aurelia folded her hands, thinking deeply. "I do not know why he chose you. But, thank you. Truly." Reed nodded. "Anytime." For a moment the wind shifted, carrying small glowing petals through the air. Soul looked up, his big golden eyes following the lights. Then he stepped closer to Reed again, making Aurelia's expression even more puzzled. "He is supposed to bond only with Valari," she said quietly. "It is our ancient rule. Yet he clings to you." Reed laughed softly. Maybe he didn't read the rules. Surprisingly, Aurelia smiled, just a little. They stayed there a while, letting Soul rest and recover. Reed kept his hand gently on the lion's mane so the creature wouldn't feel afraid. Aurelia finally stood and said, "My father will want to meet you. Not many would risk their life to save a creature of our kingdom." Reed didn't know what that meant for him, but he could feel Soul leaning against him like a warm, glowing shadow. It was clear the lion had made his choice. The river kept flowing quietly behind them, but everything felt different now. Reed had no idea that this simple act, jumping into a river, was about to change his place in the alien world forever. The next morning, Reed walked through the glowing palace halls with Soul walking beside him like a loyal shadow. The young alien lion stayed close to him, brushing Reed's leg every few steps. The guards watched in shock. Some whispered. Some bowed to the creature. But Sol didn't pay attention to anyone except Reed. Reed felt the eyes on him, but he stayed calm. He wasn't sure why the princess had asked him to come, but he hoped it wasn't for trouble. Saving Sol had been an instinct, not a plan. When he entered the golden chamber, Princess Aurelia stood in the center, looking worried. She held her hands together like she was trying to hide how nervous she felt. Reed noticed she didn't look as confident as she had the day before. "You came," she said softly. "You asked," Reed replied. "I figured it was important." Aurelia looked at Sol, who immediately trotted to Reed's side and sat against him. Her face tightened again. "That is part of the problem." Reed raised a brow. "You mean him sticking to me?" She nodded. "Yes. And also something else." Reed waited patiently. Aurelia took a deep breath and finally spoke. "I made a mistake," she said. "A serious one." Reed didn't answer yet. He let her explain. "You see," she continued, "Sol was not just my pet. He was meant to become the guardian lion of the royal line. He was in training for years. And he bonded with me. Only me." She paused, her voice heavy. "But yesterday something changed. He chose you." Sol made a small rumbling sound, nudging Reed's hand. Reed gently scratched his mane. "I didn't try to steal him," Reed said carefully. "I just saved him." "I know," Aurelia said quickly. "I know you didn't mean for this. It was my fault. Sol fell into the river because of me." Reed looked at her closely. She wasn't making excuses. She was admitting something difficult. "How?" he asked. Aurelia looked down. "I took him near the river because I wanted to show off. My friends were watching. I wanted them to see how well he obeyed me. But when a sudden wind blew, Sol slipped. And instead of jumping in, I froze." She swallowed. "I was scared. I acted like a child, not like a princess." Reed didn't judge her. "Fear happens to everyone," he said quietly. "But a princess is not supposed to freeze," she whispered. "A future ruler cannot abandon those who depend on her." Reed thought for a moment. "You didn't abandon him. You panicked." "That's different." Aurelia shook her head. "My father does not see it that way. And my advisors already heard rumors. They think I am not ready to rule. They think Sol choosing you only proves it." "So, what happens now?" Reed asked. Aurelia looked up at him with worried eyes. "My father wants Sol back at the palace training grounds. He wants to break the bond between the two of you." Sol growled softly, stepping closer to Reed. Reed put a hand gently on Sol's neck. "That doesn't sound safe," he said. "It isn't," Aurelia said. "Breaking a bond can hurt the creature. Can even kill them if the bond is deep. But my father believes humans are too unpredictable, too emotional. He will say Sol belongs to the Valari bloodline." Reed gave a small sigh. "And what do you think?" Aurelia hesitated. "I think Sol chose you because you jumped without thinking. You saved him without any fear. I think you earned his trust in a way I never did." Sol nudged Reed again, almost protectively. Reed looked at the princess. "So what do you want me to do?" Aurelia looked torn. She paced slowly, her bright blue robe dragging lightly along the glowing tiles. "I want to fix my mistake. But I don't know how. If I fight my father's order, I could lose my right to rule. If I obey him, Sol might suffer." Reed rubbed the back of Sol's mane, feeling the creature lean into his touch. The lion was calm with him, peaceful even. Reed understood what Aurelia meant. This bond wasn't something simple. Aurelia stopped pacing and looked at Reed with determination. "I want to ask you something. Something big." "Go ahead," Reed said. "Keep Sol with you," she said softly. "Just for now. Don't bring him to the palace grounds. Don't let the trainers take him." Reed blinked. "You're asking me to hide him from your own father?" "I am asking you to protect him," she said. "Please." Sol looked up at Reed, golden eyes bright and trusting. Reed hesitated. "If I do this, your father will be angry. At both of us." "I know," Aurelia said. "But Sol is alive because of you. And I don't want my mistake to cost him his life." Reed took a deep breath. Then he nodded. "Okay," he said. "I'll keep him safe." Aurelia let out a breath she had been holding. "Thank you." Sol pressed his head into Reed's chest as if thanking him too. Reed didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. The princess's mistake was already changing everything. And now, he and Sol were standing in the middle of a royal storm that was about to grow much bigger. Reed woke up early the next morning with Sol curled up beside him like a giant, warm blanket of fur. The alien lion let out a soft huff as the sunlight entered the small camp shelter. Reed stretched, rubbed his eyes and smiled. "Come on, big guy," he said softly. "We need to start training." Sol lifted his head, blinking slowly before standing up with a long, lazy stretch. His body was still young, but Reed could see strength in every part of him. Sol was powerful, he just didn't know how to use that power safely yet. Reed led him out into a quiet clearing away from the palace. Trees with crystal blue leaves shimmered in the early morning light. It was peaceful, and that was exactly what Sol needed. "All right," Reed said, patting Sol's side. "Let's start simple." At first, the lion only stared at him, head tilted as if confused. Training with humans was nothing like the harsh routines he had known before. Reed didn't shout commands. He didn't use fear. He didn't force anything. Instead, Reed knelt beside Sol and placed a hand on his chest. "Look at me," he said softly. Sol's golden eyes focused on him. "Good. That's step one, trust." Sol let out a low rumble, almost like a purr. Reed took a few steps back. "Okay, big guy. Come to me." Sol blinked once, then pounced. Not a small jump. Not a quick step. A full attack-style leap. Reed barely had time to move before the 10-foot creature landed right on top of him, pinning him into the grass. "Sol, buddy, no," Reed wheezed, struggling under the heavy weight. That was not the plan. Sol tilted his head, confused again, then licked Reed's face. Reed groaned. "Training is going to take a while." They tried again. And again. And again. By the time the sun rose fully, Reed was covered in dust, grass, and lion slobber. But Sol was trying. He listened more each time. He moved slower. He watched Reed instead of reacting purely on instinct. Reed sat on a rock, catching his breath. Sol rested his head on Reed's lap. "You're not broken," Reed said quietly. "You just weren't taught with kindness." Sol rumbled softly, closing his eyes. Later that day, Reed introduced something new, a simple wooden staff. "This isn't for hitting," he said. "It's for guiding." Sol followed the staff with his eyes as Reed moved it side to side. When Reed raised the staff upward, Sol lifted his head. When Reed lowered it, Sol crouched. "Good," Reed said. "Good boy." Sol's tail swayed happily. This time when Reed said, "Come," Sol walked instead of leaping. Slowly. Carefully. And for the first time, Reed didn't end up flattened on the ground. A small victory, but an important one. By the third day, Sol could follow hand signals, stay still even when Reed ran past him, and move quietly through the trees without shaking the ground. Reed stood with his arms crossed, smiling proudly. "You're improving fast," he said. "I think you're smarter than you pretend to be." Sol nudged him gently as if agreeing. That afternoon, Princess Aurelia secretly came to visit them. She wore a hood to hide her identity, and her steps were soft as she approached the clearing. When Sol saw her, he stiffened for a moment, unsure. Aurelia lowered her hood. "Hello, Sol." The lion watched her silently. Not angry. Not scared. Just cautious. Aurelia's shoulders fell. "He still doesn't trust me." Reed shook his head. "Trust takes time. And you're trying now. That matters." Aurelia looked at the lion, then at Reed. "Can you show me what you've taught him?" Reed nodded. "Sol," he said calmly. "Stay." Sol stayed. "Move right." Sol moved right, slow and precise. "Guard." Sol positioned himself beside Reed, standing tall. Aurelia stared with wide eyes. This is impossible." He never listened like that before. Reed smiled. "It's not impossible. You just have to train him like a partner, not like a tool." Aurelia lowered her gaze. "I was taught that a royal guardian must obey without question." "That's not strength," Reed said. "That's fear. And fear breaks creatures." Aurelia looked up at him again, seeing him with new respect. "You taught him more in days than our trainers did in years." Reed shrugged lightly. "I just listened to him." Sol walked between them and sat as if proud of himself. Aurelia reached out slowly. "May I touch him?" Sol hesitated. Then he leaned forward and let her place her hand on his mane. Aurelia smiled softly. "Thank you, Sol." Something shifted in that moment. Not fully healed. Not fully fixed. But better. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, Reed sat beside Sol while the lion watched the sky turn shades of shimmering purple. "You're doing amazing," Reed whispered. Sol rested his heavy head on Reed's shoulder. The bond between them was growing stronger each day. But Reed also knew this peaceful time wouldn't last. Sooner or later the palace would come looking. And when they did, Sol's training and their bond would be tested in ways neither of them expected. Reed woke before sunrise, sensing something was wrong. Soul, who usually slept curled beside him, was already awake. The lion stood at the edge of the clearing, ears raised, muscles tense. His golden eyes watched the forest with alert focus. Reed stepped closer. "What is it, buddy?" Soul didn't move. He only growled softly, warning, not anger. A moment later, Reed heard it too, footsteps. Many of them. The trees parted, and a squad of royal guards marched into the clearing. Their armor shone silver blue, and their leader held a long staff marked with the royal crest. Princess Aurelia walked behind them, her expression tight. Reed's heart sank. "Aurelia, what's going on?" The princess looked torn, almost ashamed. "Reed, I didn't order this. The High Council summoned Soul for an evaluation. They want to test if he is still loyal to the royal bloodline." Reed clenched his fists. "Loyalty? After they abandoned him?" Aurelia lowered her head. "I know. But they fear Soul might be too attached to you. They think you may have changed him." Soul growled loudly at the guards. They flinched back. The captain raised his staff. "The creature will be taken. Stand aside, human." Reed stepped in front of Soul without thinking. "No. He isn't your creature anymore. He chooses who he trusts." The guards tightened their formation. Aurelia stepped forward quickly. "Wait. Reed, please. If Soul refuses the test, they may order him destroyed." Reed froze. Soul sensed Reed's fear and moved closer, brushing his side against the human. His warm breath hit Reed's shoulder. "Destroyed?" Reed whispered. Aurelia nodded, fists trembling. "The council fears anything they cannot control." Reed looked into Soul's golden eyes. He could see the lion understood something serious was happening, even if he didn't know the details. Reed placed a hand on Soul's mane. "I'm with you, buddy. No matter what." The guards kept their distance as Aurelia gently approached Soul. "The test is simple," she said softly. "They will put you in a ring. They will order you to attack Reed. If you don't, they will call you disobedient. If you do," she looked away, "it will break you both." Reed's stomach twisted painfully. "So he loses either way?" Aurelia swallowed. "Unless he does something else. Something unexpected." The journey to the palace was tense. Soul walked beside Reed the entire time, never letting a guard get too close. Reed kept his hand resting on Soul's thick fur, trying to stay calm even as fear gnawed at him. When they reached the training arena, Reed saw hundreds of royal officials watching from high seats. It wasn't a test, it was a spectacle. The announcer's voice rang out. "The Ravox Guardian will now prove its loyalty to the crown." Reed was pushed into the center of the ring. Soul was brought in from the opposite side. The gate slammed shut behind him. Soul lowered his head, confused. His tail twitched nervously. Reed whispered, "Don't worry. We'll figure this out." The High Council leader rose to his feet. "Ravox, you will attack the human." The arena fell silent. Reed felt his heartbeat in his throat. Soul took one slow step, toward Reed. The crowd leaned forward. Reed held his breath. Soul reached him, then circled around him, placing himself between Reed and the council. The council leader frowned. "Attack him." Soul growled, a deep, thunderous sound that shook the arena. Reed stepped forward. "He won't hurt me. Not for you. Not for anyone." The guards raised their weapons at Soul. Aurelia stood abruptly. "Stop. Look at him. He is showing loyalty, just not to cruelty. He is choosing to protect someone who protected him." The council leader slammed his staff on the ground. "The Ravox follows a human, not the crown. That makes him a..." Soul roared. Not a roar of violence, but of defiance. A roar that echoed across the arena, shaking the dust from the stone walls. Then Soul did something no one expected. He knelt. Not to the council. Not in surrender. But beside Reed. He lowered his huge head, pressing his forehead gently to Reed's chest. Reed touched his mane, feeling tears in his eyes. "It's okay, buddy. I'm here." The entire arena fell silent. Aurelia stepped forward, raising her voice. "This is loyalty. This is devotion. This creature has chosen the one who treated him with kindness. That is not weakness, that is strength." Reed stood tall beside Soul. "If loyalty is only real when it comes from fear, then your entire system is broken." The council members whispered among themselves, shaken. The leader glared. "This test is incomplete." Aurelia lifted her chin, fire in her eyes. "No, it is complete. And the result is clear." Reed placed both hands on Soul's enormous face. "You did it, big guy. You showed them who you really are." Soul rumbled softly, leaning into his touch. "The test was meant to break them apart. Instead, it revealed a bond stronger than any command. Reed never imagined his life would change so quickly. One day he was a simple soldier from a small border town, and the next day he was the man who stood beside a legendary Ravox lion in front of the entire kingdom. People whispered his name everywhere he went. Some called him brave. Some called him foolish. But Reed didn't care about any of that. He only cared about Sol. After the arena incident, the High Council could not deny the truth anymore. Sol had chosen Reed, and forcing them apart would only cause more trouble. So the council announced a strange decision. Reed would become Sol's official handler. That meant he would live inside the royal grounds, near the training fields, and watch over Sol every day. To the council it sounded like control. To Reed it felt like family. Sol adjusted to the new life quickly. He had a large space to roam, fresh water, warm sunlight, and Reed visiting him almost every hour. Whenever Reed walked into the enclosure, Sol would stand up immediately, tail swishing behind him like an excited dog. Reed would laugh and scratch behind his ear, and Sol would press his huge head against Reed's side like he did in the arena. But the kingdom was changing. People from distant towns traveled long distances just to catch a glimpse of the lion who bowed. Children carried wooden toys shaped like Sol. Soldiers spoke with pride about the Ravox who knelt for a human. Some even said Sol was a sign of a new future, one where beasts and humans stood together, not apart. The only thing that worried Reed was how quickly everything was moving. One evening, as the sun dropped behind the palace walls, Reed sat beside Sol in the grass. Sol lay stretched out, purring softly while Reed cleaned the dried dust from his mane. "You know," Reed said quietly, "I'm not sure I'm ready for all this attention." Sol flicked his ear. "I mean it," Reed continued. "I just wanted to help you when you were hurt. That's all. I didn't think people would start calling you a symbol." Sol huffed as if telling him he worried too much. Reed smiled. Yeah, I know. One day at a time." Just then Princess Aurelia walked into the enclosure. She looked tired but relieved. "Reed," she said softly, "I have news." Reed stood. "Good or bad?" "Both," she sighed. "The council has decided that you and Sol will represent the kingdom in the Unity Parade next month. They want to show the world that our people and our guardians can work together." Reed blinked in surprise. "Me? In a parade?" "You and Sol," Aurelia said. "They think it will calm the tension between the border villages and the capital. And they want to show that Sol obeys peaceful commands." Reed frowned. "So this is still a test?" Aurelia stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Not like before. This time they want you two to succeed." Reed looked at Sol, who was now watching them both curiously. He sighed. "If it helps keep Sol safe, we'll do it." Aurelia gave him a kind smile. "I knew you would say that." Training for the parade began the next morning. Reed walked beside Sol through the palace streets, teaching him how to stay calm around large crowds. Sol didn't like the noise at first. The shouting, the drums, the clanking armor, it made him twitch and growl. Reed always stayed close, placing a steady hand on Sol's mane, reminding him he wasn't alone. "You're doing great," Reed whispered one day as Sol carefully walked past a group of cheering children. "Just a little more." Sol puffed out his chest proudly, making the children laugh with excitement. Day by day their bond grew stronger. Night by night their trust deepened. Finally, the day of the Unity Parade arrived. The streets were overflowing with people. Colorful banners hung from every window. Musicians played loud, happy notes that filled the air with energy. When Reed and Sol entered the main street, the crowd erupted in cheers. Sol stood tall, bright and powerful, his mane glowing like gold in the sunlight. Reed walked beside him in simple armor, nothing fancy, but the people still shouted his name. Reed wasn't used to it. He kept looking at Sol for support. Sol looked straight ahead, calm and steady. A true guardian. A living legend. As they reached the central square, Reed saw something surprising. Many of the guards who once feared Sol were now bowing respectfully. Some even had admiration in their eyes. Aurelia stood on the royal balcony, smiling proudly at them. Reed felt a warmth spread through his chest. This wasn't just a parade. This was acceptance. This was the kingdom admitting that Sol was more than a beast, and that Reed was more than a soldier. As the sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over the crowd, Sol leaned gently against Reed, a quiet reminder of everything they had survived together. Reed placed a hand on Sol's mane and whispered, "I didn't just save you, did I? You saved me too." In that moment, Reed realized something. He hadn't just adopted a guardian. He had adopted a legend. And that legend had chosen him back.